What's up everyone, it's Alex here from VG247.com. I've got a little bit of footage here of Mortal Kombat 11 that I grabbed with our buddy Arex from over at Arex Gaming. So if some of this footage looks similar to what you've seen over on Arex's channel, it's because we sort of did this together. And this is going to be, I'm going to be upfront with you, it's going to be some scrubby play because I'm not a huge Mortal Kombat player. Or I have been in the past, but I didn't really, I enjoyed Mortal Kombat 10. And Injustice 2 a decent amount, but when I was sort of done with the story and a bit of very casual play with my friends, I sort of returned to some other fighters. I mean, primarily for me, Street Fighter 5 still. But I'm really pumped for Mortal Kombat 11, and there's a couple of reasons why. And really, you know, I got to have my first hands-on where I played the game for, you know, about 45 minutes or so, and really came away quite impressed with what they're changing. So what I really want to touch on, first and foremost, is that this is a better feeling Mortal Kombat game. To really get into this, I really just want to touch on what I think has been the problem with a lot of Mortal Kombat, which has been the character animation. Mortal Kombat has always had AAA animation in terms of it being motion captured and beautiful facial animation and insanely good looking super attacks and fatalities, whatever. But in terms of the moment-to-moment when you're in a fight, I've always felt like the priority on animation made the game often feel a bit sluggish. And I said this in my written preview on VG247.com, and I'll pop a link in the description to that written version. But I said, you know, I feel like that comes from the original Mortal Kombat, where that was a game that had digitized photos instead of hand-drawn sprites, and that limited the way that characters looked and the way that characters moved, and that made Mortal Kombat have a very unique, very specific, slower, more deliberate feel than something like a Street Fighter 2. So I feel like when they brought the series back in 2011 for Mortal Kombat 9, they sort of replicated that but in a 2.5D 3D rendered version of the series. And that's fine, it always sort of made sense, but I never felt like it felt as good as it could have, and I felt like, you know, this was based on a technical restraint of the digitized photos, but it's been kept. Anyway, the long story short is, I feel like Mortal Kombat 11 definitely has made some changes to its speed and pacing, and I don't know if it's about animation, or if it's about keyframes, if it's about animation cancelling, but the point is, that stuff, finding out exactly what it is will be difficult without actually sitting down with the game for hours and analysing it. But just from playing the short period that I played, what's clear is this is a better feeling game. It's a fighting game that you can finally play footsies in, if you know that term. And if you don't, footsies is basically when in a fighting game you're sort of walking back and forwards, testing space between you and your opponent, trying not to get too close that you get hit, but also trying to get close enough that if they throw something out there, you can catch them yourself. Feels like that's going to be far more viable in Mortal Kombat 11. It just feels slicker and tighter and just way better than Mortal Kombat 10 or 9 or Injustice 1 or 2. Now, admittedly, this is something that NetherRealm Studios, the developers, have been getting better at. I feel like Injustice was better than Mortal Kombat 9. Mortal Kombat 9, I feel like Mortal Kombat 10 was better than Injustice, and Injustice 2 was better than Mortal Kombat 10. So it makes sense that this would be the next step, and it would be better than Injustice 2, and it would be tight and feel good, and it really does. And that's really made me excited, because that's my primary issue with Mortal Kombat in the past, totally looking like it might well be taken care of. And so that's the main thing I really wanted to focus on in this video, because that's a huge deal that's going to make a huge difference. But what else? It feels bloody good, like I said, but it also feels like it's the goriest, nastiest Mortal Kombat ever. I think your mileage will vary for that, depending on how you feel about that stuff. It doesn't really bother me either way. I don't think it's particularly awesome and badass, but it doesn't upset me either. It's just sort of silly. But the one thing that's nice actually around that is it does feel like this is a Mortal Kombat game that isn't taking itself too seriously. And that's good, because I feel like 10 often yo-yoed between being quite po-faced and serious, especially in story tone and stuff, but then also mega over the top with Cassie, you know, taking selfies and blowing bubblegum while she's blowing people's heads off and stuff. This feels like it's a bit more devoted to the cause of just being completely campy and silly, and let's be fair, that's where Mortal Kombat is at its best, as is expressed in the absolutely classic and I won't hear of an otherwise movie. Other things, so this game sort of takes some stuff from Injustice 2 as well as Mortal Kombat 10. So if you played Mortal Kombat 10, you'll probably remember that there were 3 different variations, a trio of different versions of each character in the game. So you would choose between those as well as choosing character. That's back in this game, so there's nuanced differences between characters. But then if you played Injustice 2, you'll also remember that that game had a gear system where there was proper RPG-style coloured tiered loot that you could equip to characters that would change properties of their moves or change the way fighting works in a battle or just make a character more or less powerful. And so now you've got both, so now you can sort of pick your character stance but also pick the gear that's on any given stance to adjust it even more. So it's like these two systems from these two games combine to make an even deeper level of customization. And goddamn, it seems like there's a lot of really, really detailed customization. So it feels like that side of the game, there's going to be a lot to do, but also it's that classic fighting game thing of if you just want to play in a more serious tournament setting and play with the balance as the developers intended, there will of course be modes in the game where you can turn off all that customization stuff and just focus down on the raw stuff as it was built initially. Other changes, it just feels like there's some smart mechanical changes. So now instead of just one super meter, resource meter, you've now got 2, 1 meter dedicated to offensive abilities and 1 meter dedicated to defensive abilities. So you can sort of, you don't have to, if you need to get out of a combo, you don't have to sacrifice offensive meter. You can spend your defensive meter and then still have the offensive stuff for using when you get your comeback attack. There's a new mechanic called Fatal Blow, which is basically a revenge system. So if you've played any game with a revenge system, be that a Soul Calibur or Street Fighter, which obviously has, in Street Fighter 4 there was Ultras, and in Street Fighter 5 there's the V-Triggers, which are sort of a revenge. And what I mean by revenge mechanic is, as you get hurt, the more hurt you are, it gets closer and closer to unlocking this new move, and when you're finally really hurt, you actually unlock this new big move, and that move is, as I said, the Fatal Blow, which is basically a big super attack that, you know, has slow motion and bones cracking and all that good stuff that was first introduced in Mortal Kombat 9, and that's really cool. There's also a new perfect block where if you block right in a specific window, it's sort of almost like it's not quite a parry, but it does let you sort of launch off into a more brutal counter attack. And all this stuff sort of adds up to just feel like a really smartly designed, tight game. And Mortal Kombat's always had it with the features and the breadth of content, but it's always been in the how good is the actual fighting game bit where the series has felt a little bit iffy and perhaps not as good as a Street Fighter or a Tekken. And it feels like Mortal Kombat 11 is really taking some serious steps to take the fight to them in that sense and have the gameplay systems to match up to the actual visuals and content and all that sort of stuff. Just before I go, just to quickly touch on content. So obviously this was a non-final build I played, but if you look at this build and count a little bit, it looks like you're looking at the region of 25-ish playable characters. We only know 7 right now, but, you know, it's good to at least know that we've got a decent number of character slots. And, of course, Mortal Kombat has always been, or NetherRealm in general, because with Injustice 2, has always been very, very big on DLC as well. Also, the crunching the numbers in a similar way, it looked like there were 17 stages. There were only a couple of stages unlocked, but there were spaces basically for 17, so it seems like that will probably be how many there are. Just to quickly touch on the roster again, sorry, I just wanted to mention who is actually back. So you've got Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Raiden, Sonya Blade, Scarlet, who of course was DLC in Mortal Kombat 9, is back. And Scarlet's a really cool character, I think, really underrated. Baraka and Geras. And Geras is a newcomer, and he's all about time travel, and he controls the sands of time, which means he also has some sand element powers. He seems really cool. and it seems like there's going to be a lot of classic returning characters too. In fact, if you sort of, as I was scrubbing through this footage, if you look in the menus and stuff like that, you can sort of see hints that, like, it seems pretty likely that Cassie is in the game, for instance. It seems pretty likely that Rain is in the game, for instance. But hopefully there'll be more newcomers than just Geras as well. And yeah, I mean, it's Mortal Kombat, right? You know what you're getting with Mortal Kombat, but this is totally looking like it's going to be the best one since they did the reboot in 2011. And let's be fair, Mortal Kombat was pretty pants for a long time before that. So actually, this is looking like it's probably going to be the best one since Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, which is not a thing to say lightly, because that game is bloody amazing. So yeah, obviously it's early days. This is a very limited build in terms of, you know, characters and modes and stuff like that, and it's early days, and a lot can go wrong with fighting games. You know, look at what happened with Street Fighter 5, where it looked amazing before release, and then it launched and it was like, where's all the content? Or look at what happened with Mortal Kombat 10, where again it looked pretty tight before release, and then there was all that nasty in-game currency, grinding, and all that sort of stuff that sort of soured the whole game. But this is a really strong initial showing, and I think if they can just ride this out and make it all work and get it all right, I think the ideas are there to make this the best Mortal Kombat game in a long time, possibly even a contender for the best ever, and that's really, really exciting. So it's coming out for PC, PS4, Xbox One, and believe it or not, Nintendo Switch. What you're seeing here is the Xbox One version. It was running in 4K when I was playing it, but we weren't allowed to capture it in 4K. We were only allowed to capture it at 1080. But for what it's worth, it looked pretty nice at 4K. And yeah, I didn't see it running on anything other than the Xbox. But you know, stick with us on VG 24/7. We will sort of check back in when we are able to play the game again, see some more characters, have some more time to actually play the game in a non-terrible way, because this was in a loud event, weren't really able to look at movesets and get down what characters are like. But we will do all that, so stick with us. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, ring the bell, all that stuff that people say on YouTube. That stuff genuinely does help us out, so if you like us and you like what we're doing and you want to hear more from us, just hit all those buttons like your life depends on it. But yeah, I'm pretty excited for Mortal Kombat 11. I think it's going to be an exciting year for fighting games. I think we're going to get some interesting Street Fighter 5 DLC as that game sort of, I think it's probably reaching the end. And, you know, we've got Dragon Ball FighterZ stuff still coming, and hopefully there'll be more Soul Calibur DLC. And this looks amazing, so I'm really pumped. Roll on Evo, roll on April, and roll on the next time we get to go hands-on, where we'll bring you some more videos and stuff. So yeah, Mortal Kombat 11, into it. That's it for now. Until next time, everyone. See ya.